Hi students, a very pleasant and warm greetings to you all. Hope you are doing good. Last session we have seen about network protocols and all, right? We have seen the network layers. Hope you would have learned that. We have seen the OSI layer and also the TCP bar IP layers and all. Make sure you learn it, okay? And today we are going to see about DNS, okay? Domain name system. Domain name system means we all are having names, right? Likewise, when you are visiting a website also, first and all, it had only the IP address. If you are having only the roll numbers and if you are not having any name, it's difficult to identify you, right? So we prefer naming, right? Likewise, only here also in previous days, only websites had IP address. If there is only IP address, it is difficult to find that websites, right? It is difficult to access that website using the IP address. So they created domain names, okay? And previously and all, if you see, when we are using landline phones, we had a big book which had the contact names and the respective contact numbers. Likewise, like the phone book, here in this websites and all, they started giving a domain name, and that system is known as domain name system. Okay, this maintains all the directory of domain names and the host names, or it may have a domain name or host name, right? And it will help us to access the website using this domain name. Okay, it's not necessary to keep this IP address in our mind. We can just remember the domain name and we can search it, right? If this Google is having a domain name of 102.3.32.64.111 means, how will we remember that? It's difficult, right? Now it has a domain name as google.com, right? So this is done to make our works easy. Okay, let's see the overview of DNS. Okay, DNS is domain name system. Okay, for the communication process only this DNS came. Okay, we saw that it had seven layers. Application layer is one of this seven layers, right? There are many applications in this application layer. Okay, and in this domain name system also, this domain name system is also one among them. In internet is based on the IP address only. It is not based on the domain names. But to make the work easier, this domain names are given to this IP address, right? To enable this domain names in a network, this domain name system, this one is used. Okay, domain name to IP address mapping will be a consistent one across all the networks. Okay, in which network you search, if you are searching one website, it will have an IP address, right? Each website will have a domain name so that it will be easy to access that particular website from anywhere in any network, right? Wherever you are, you can just use this domain name and you can just log into that website, or you can just open that website, right? This domain name system provides the domain name to the IP address mapping through the name servers. Okay, to know more about this DNS, first you must know what is IP address, what is URL, right? And the components of this domain name system and all, right? While typing a web address, example, now we are typing www.google.com, means this domain name system translates it into a machine language. Machine will not understand the language which we talk, right? So the task which we give will be taken by the computer and it will convert it into its language, right? And it will process it and it will again convert it into our language and it will give the output, right? That is the process of this computer. In the same way, here in this domain name system also, you are having a domain name like www.google.com. We'll give that in the website, in that address bar, and that machine will change that domain name into its IP address, right? If you are taking www.tnschools.in, you are typing that, and that machine will change its this website, this DNS, this domain name into the IP address. That means it will be having 35.173.69.207 means that is the IP address of that particular website, right? This domain name system will change this, will translate this domain name to a web address, right? And this IP address will lead to the correct website which we are searching, right? That is domain name systems work. Okay. American computer scientist Paul V. Mockapetris, okay, M-O-C-K, Mockapetris, together with John Postel, invented the Internet Domain Name System. Okay, who invented this domain name system? Paul V. Mockapetris, together with John Postel, only invented this. Okay, this John Postel was the administrator of Internet Assigned Number Authority, IANA. IANA means Internet Assigned Number Authority. Okay, until his death, he was known as the god of the internet. Okay, they have given the image of John Foster and Paul V. Mockapetris in your book in page number 163. Okay, when you are reading this chapter, just go through that do you know portion also. Okay, next we are going to see about IP address. IP we saw in the last chapter itself, right? IP means Internet Protocol, right? IP address is Internet Protocol address. Okay, this is simply a address. Okay, this is the address in the network layer. This IP address means this will have the address of a website. Okay, this is simply the logical address in the network layer. Okay, how in our home and all we'll have a address, right? We'll have a door number, we'll have a street name, city name, and we'll have a pin like that. This Internet Protocol address is the number of the website. Okay, this is used to identify the individual website. Okay, this will find the host system in a whole network. Okay, due to the here we have many number of systems, right? In a network there are many number of systems, so there is a need of more addresses so that it will lead two addressing methods, that is IPv4 and IPv6. Okay, IPv4 addressing, let's see what is IPv4 addressing. IPv4 addressing means it is a 32-bit unique address. Okay, this is given to a computer system. No two system can have a same IP address. I said to you before, one address means it will denote only one system or only one host device, right? So this IPv4 address is a 32-bit unique address and this is given to a computer system. Only one system will have one IP address, right? If a network has n connections, then n address will be there, right? The address space is the total number of address that can be made by that protocol. Okay, this determined and by the number of bits that a protocol will use. Okay, if a protocol uses n number of bits means the address space of that protocol will be 2 power n address. Okay, so that the number of addresses that can be formed in this IPv4 is, I said you this is 32-bit unique address, right? This IPv4 address is 32-bit unique address. So this IPv4 will have 2 power 32, right? Here we have two ways to represent the IP address. First one is binary notation. Second one is dotted decimal notation. Okay, binary notation. Binary means we all know. Binary means it will have only 1 and 0, right? It will have only zeros and ones. So in binary notation means the address can be expressed as 32-bit binary value. That means 32 digits will be there in this binary value. Okay, if it is dotted decimal notation means this address will be in decimal format only, but it will be separated with dots. Okay, you would have seen 128.143.162.144, like that only IP address will be there, right? So binary notation means it will be in zeros and ones, like that. In decimal notations, if it is given, it will be given in decimal number format itself, and it will be separated with dots. Okay. Here they have given the address for IPv4, and this is the first byte, second byte, third byte, fourth byte. Each of the bytes is changed to decimal also, binary value, and the decimal value is there. If it is a binary value, it will be denoted by 32 digits. If it is denoted as dotted decimal, means each value will be separated with dot. Okay. And the next one is IPv6 address. Okay. IPv6 address is a 128-bit unique address. Okay. This will be given to a computer system only. This also in 128-bit address. Okay, this is a 128-bit unique address. The number of addresses that can be performed in this IPv6 is, in IPv4 we saw that it is a 32-bit, and the number of address that can be performed in the IPv4 is 2 power 32. So in this IPv6 it is a 128-bit unique address. So the number of address will be 2 power 128, right? So here in this IPv6, 128 bits will be divided into 8 16-bit blocks. Okay, this will be divided into 16-bit blocks. So you will get 8 16-bit blocks, and this each block will be changed to a 4-digit hexadecimal numbers, and this will be separated by colon symbols, right? Colon means, two dots will be there, right? Here they have given an example. Just see that, you will get an idea. Here they have given 2001 colon 0000 colon 32313 colon DFE1 colon 0063 colon 0000 colon 0000 colon FEFB. Likewise, it has a 16-bit blocks, right? 8 16-bit blocks, and each block is changed to a 4-digit hexadecimal number, and it will be separated with colon. Okay. We know semicolon, right? In the programming and all, we use the semicolon. Here this is colon. Okay. Next one is Uniform Resource Locator. You all would have heard URL. URL means it is a, in all search engines you will be having a URL. To watch this video also, you would have got a link, right? In that link, it had some HTTP colon slash youtube.com slash, and some letters and all are there, and some numbers and all would be there, right? That is the URL, right? URL is the address of the document on the internet. Okay, URL is made up of 4 parts protocols. Okay, host name, folder name, and file name. Each part will have its own functions. Okay, each part has its own specific functions. Depending on the users and depending on the additional data, this URL can be made, right? But the common and fundamental URL will consist of these 4 parts. First one is protocol. Next, it will have domain name or host name. Next, it will have the folders, and then it will have the file. That file means this will have an extension like .jpeg, .gif, or .css, or .htm. Like that, it will have the file also at last, right? In this diagram, in this image, you can just find it. First, this HTTP is there, right? That is a protocol. cms.tn.gov.in. This is a domain name or host name, and then the folders they have given here. Sites default, inside the site default file, press release, and then it will have a file, right? So this is the URL. Okay, this URL type this URL is divided into 2 types: absolute URL and relative URL. Absolute URL means complete address of the document on the internet. Okay, absolute URL will contain all the information that are required to find the files in the internet. Okay, these are same as the postal address. If any of the information is missing, then the post will not receive us, right? If you are giving your address, if you are missing any one place, or if you are missing one pin code, means it cannot be delivered to your address, right? Likewise, this absolute URL will have, if any of the four part is missing in this absolute URL, you cannot reach the particular web page, right? Relative URL means it is a partial address of a document on the internet. Relative URL will have only the file name or file name with folder name. Or we can use this type of URL when the file is on the same server related to original documents, right? If two of you are working in a company, working in a system which is connected to the same server, it is not needed to give the whole URL. Just two parts or a single part is enough. If just we are giving a file name or we are giving a folder name and file name, that's enough, right? So this is known as relative URL. Okay, if the complete address is there, we'll say it as absolute URL. If only two parts or one part is there, then we'll say it as relative URL. Okay. Next, we'll see the components of DNS. Okay. There are three important components in this DNS, domain name system. First one is namespace. Next one is name server, and the third one is zone. Okay, let's see what is namespace, name server and zone in detail. Okay, namespace means the domain name must be very unique and correct, right? The name should be selected from the namespace. Okay, the namespace can be organized into two. First one is flat namespace and the next one is hierarchical namespace. Okay, flat namespace means this where the name is assigned to the IP address. Okay, they do not have any specific structure in this flat namespace. Some meaningful names are given to IP address for accessing. There is a disadvantage for this flat namespace also, that is it cannot be used in large systems, okay, because they have to be accessed and controlled centrally to avoid the redundancy and ambiguity. Ambiguity means the quality of being open or it is inexactness, okay. This is difficult in this flat name system. To avoid this major disadvantage, this hierarchical namespacing is used. Okay, hierarchical namespacing means this is made up of several parts. First part may represent the nature of the organization. The second part may have the organization's name. The third part may have the department's name. And in if the next part is having the section or the part from that department's name. Likewise, if the hierarchical namespace is used, that disadvantage which is in this flat name system is rectified, right? In this way, the power to control the namespace can be decentralized. Okay. Next one is domain namespace. Domain namespace was designed to achieve this hierarchical namespace only. In this the names will be represented as a tree-like structure. With it will have a root element on the top, and this tree can have maximum of 128 levels, which in where the root element will be taking from level 0 means it will have the till the level 127, right? Here they have explained through a diagram there. Root, in this root, if there is level 0, it will be splitted into parts, right? And again it will be splitted, and it will have the total number of 128 levels. If it is starting from 0, we'll say it is the last level will be level 127, right? Are you clear? The root element always will represent the null string or the empty string. Okay, the next level to the root element is children of root element. Okay, each node in this tree will have a label and a domain name. Okay, label means it is a string which can have maximum of 63 characters. Okay, label means it can have up to 63 characters. Okay, each node in that level should have different labels. If one is having the same label means it will be confusing, right? So each node in that level should have different labels. Thereby it will be assuring the individuality of the domain name. That is what I told you before. Domain name means itself it will have a specific domain name. If I am Jenny means if I am having a website and I am named as Jenny, right? If someone else is also Jenny, you cannot. If I have registered in the name of Jenny means if someone else is coming and if they are trying to get the name Jenny, they can't get it, right? They have to change the spelling or they have to give a new name and only they can register, right? For that only this domain name system has the individuality of giving separate a new name or a unique name to every websites, right? In other words, labels are the names given to domain. Okay, domain means it is a subtree in the domain namespace tree structure. This domain can be divided into some subdomains also. Here, if you see domain name and label. Okay, here first challenge is there, that is a label, and then that is a domain name, right? Here they have given a domain name, and again it is going to the next level, and there one domain name is there, and for that also there is a label, and again likewise from root also, from root if you see also it will have some subdomains, right? So here you can see that each label is separated from bottom to top, right? Domain name is a sequence of labels. In this domain name sequence, it will be separated by dot, right? This domain name will always be read from the leaf node to root node. That means from bottom to top, right? So the root node always will be a null string. Okay, all the domain name will end with a dot only. Okay, so the root node will always represent a null string. Okay, let's see the basic rules of domain names. Okay, domain name can consist of alphabets. It may be A or it may be Z also. A to Z it can have. It can have a digits also. 0 to 9 also we can use. But it must not have any space. Okay, it can have hyphens also. Hyphens cannot come in the beginning. The domain name will not start with a hyphen, but hyphen can be there anywhere in between. Okay, spaces are not allowed. Some special symbols are also not permitted, like that you have seen an exclamatory mark, dollar symbol, and symbol, underscore symbol, like this. Special symbols are not permitted in this domain name. Okay, domain name can have a minimum length of 2 and a maximum length up to 63 characters. Okay, we have seen it already. It can have 63 characters also. The entire name may be at most of 253 characters long. Okay, length is 63 characters. The entire name maybe most of 253 characters long. Okay, this domain name are not case sensitive. It may be uppercase, that is maybe a capital letter or maybe a small letter, or maybe a mixing of both capital letter and small letters also. Okay, next one is generic top level domain names. Okay, top level domain means it is a last part of the domain name. Generic top level domains are used for generic purpose, and this is maintained by IANA. Okay, IANA, I have told you previously. What is the full form of IANA? Internet Assigned Numbers Authority, right? IANA is a Internet Assigned Numbers Authority. This is a affiliated authority of ICANN. Okay. Let's continue here. They have given a generic domain name table also. We all know .com we'll have used, .edu, .gov, this and all we have used. Let's see the meaning of that. Okay. .com means this is a commercial organization. Okay. EDU means this will come for the educational institutions. GOV means we all know government. MIL means military groups. ORG means non-profit organization. NET means networking organization. Info means information service providers. Com means commercial organization. EDU for educational institutions. GOV for government. MIL for military groups. ORG for non-profit organization. Net for networking organization, info for information service providers, right? And now we are going to see about country top level domain names. Okay, country domain uses two character country abbreviations according to the country. Okay, for example, if you are India means we'll use google.in for India. If it is for US means they'll use google.us. Right? Understood? Likewise, the country domain names only we are going to see now. Okay. For India, IN we know. For United States, it is US. Right? For France, it is FR. United Kingdom, UK. Canada, CA. Australia, AU. Sri Lanka, LK. Bangladesh, BD. China, CN. Pakistan, PK. For Japan, JP. For Singapore, SG. Right? When you see this domain name, you can just write the country names, right? IN means we know India, US, United States, FR, France, UK, United Kingdom, CA, Canada, AU, Australia, LK, Sri Lanka, BD, Bangladesh, CN, China, PK, Pakistan, JP, Japan, SG, Singapore. Right? These domain names can also be written in other languages also. In English, it has a Unicode. For Tamil language also, this can be used in three top level domain names, which are India, Singapore and Ilangai, like that they have given. In Tamil also, in the same as in English, they have domain names for in Tamil also. Okay. And about the name server, name server means the information which needs to be stored in the domain namespace is quite large, right? So single system would be insufficient, right? Inefficient and insufficient to store that big amount of request all over the world, right? So this becomes a impossible one, right? So in case of any failure of data comes, we cannot access that. So to find a solution for this problem, the information among many computers, the best way to do is we'll divide the entire space into many domains and subdomains, so that this DNS also will allow the domains further to divide it into subdomains by this, and this solution is good, right? If it is subdivided and it is given as subdomains, it will be easy to access a small area, right? This name server will store the data and provide it to the clients when it is incurred, right? When the client is asking, they'll just give, right? This name server will provide the client when they ask, right? Name servers are programs that run on a physical system and store all the zone data. Okay, this name server is the main part of this DNS. Okay, domain name system's main part is name server. Okay, this translates the domain name to IP address. This name server will have this DNS database, and this database will have the domain name and the IP address. Each domain name will have their IP address. The IP address only they are giving the domain name for our understanding. So this domain names and the IP address will be stored here. Okay. There is a need to store a big number of domain names for the worldwide usage, right? So plenty of servers are used in the hierarchical manner. Okay, this name servers does the main task in searching the domain names. Okay, when you search a website using a local service, local name server, this will ask the different name server until one of them find out your answer, right? You can just type any one word and it will give you so many options, and it will finally lead you to the website which you need, right? At last, it will return the IP address for that domain name. Your computer can be connected to the web page which you request, and it will be stored in your web server. Okay, when you see this diagram, you can see the working structure of name server. Okay, the different name servers, there are three types of name servers. First one is a root name server, and the next one is primary name server, or we can say it as master name server. The next one is secondary name server or slave name server. Okay, root name server means root, we all know, top level server. Okay, root is in the top, right? So root name server is the top name server, which this will contain the entire DNS tree, and this will be maintained by ICANN. Okay, there are 13 servers. Okay, here a primary name server or master name server means this will contain a zone resource record. That means these records are updatable by domain name holders, like organization or some particular authority can update their domain names, right? Next one is secondary names server, or we can say it as slave name server. This will contain a copy of primary server files. Okay, this server has no authority to update or but they can reduce the workload of the master service by sharing the queries. If there is 10 queries, means they will just share it within them, and then they will just work there, right? So this will reduce the workload of the master server by sharing the queries. Okay, and the next one is zone. Zone means the entire namespace is divided into many different zones. Okay, entire namespace means it will be it will have a large namespaces, right? And this zone will be the divided namespace parts, right? That space is divided into many zones. Understood? It is the area up where the server has access. The server can access that. This zone, we can just define it as this is the group of contiguous domain and subdomains. Okay, this may have domains and also subdomains. If there is a single domain in a zone, then that zone and domain are same. Okay, every zone has the server which will have a database, and that is called zone file. Okay, zone file means every zone will have a server there. That server only will have the database. Okay, using this zone file only, the DNS server will give the reply for that queries which is given about the host in the zone. Okay, in a zone there will be a host, right? That host will get so many queries, and this replies and all will be given from this zone file only. Okay, the zone file will have the database of the server. Okay, there are two copies of zone files will be available: master file and slave file. Okay, master file and slave file. We have seen master and slave in the server types also. Here also master file and slave file is there, right? A domain is a single node of domain namespace. Okay, zone means it is a subset of a domain namespace. Generally, this will be stored in a file. Okay, this domain namespace in this is a entire collection of domain, subdomains, and zones. We'll say it as domain namespace. Okay, domain space namespace means it will include the entire collection of the domain, subdomains, and so on, everything. Okay, then the name server will manage the database of domain names and its IP address also, right? A server can contain more than one zone file, and a zone can contain more than one subdomains also. Okay, the next one is resolver. Okay, resolver. What is resolver? Domain name system is a client application, or it is a server application, right? If a host system need to map the domain name to the IP address, or it has to map the IP address with the domain name, what it will do according to the call or according to the work is done only, this can be solved, right? So this process we'll say it as a resolver. Okay, so this process of the host system connecting with the IP address and domain name is done by the resolver. Okay, the resolver will either ask the server to provide the information about the IP address, or if it is not available there, it will send a request to other servers also, and somehow it will find the IP address and it will match with the uh, domain name. Okay, once that resolver receives the mapping, this will check whether there is any error, or that resolution or the mapping is done properly. According to the result, that process will be checked once, and then only it will just map the domain name to the IP address, or map the IP address with the domain name. Okay, the resolver means it is a program. Okay, this is a program, and this is responsible for starting the translation of the domain name into a IP address. Okay, so this resolver is stored in the host. Okay, so there is no need of any protocol to form a connection between the resolver and the user program. It will be inside the host itself, and it will be translating the domain name to IP address, or the IP address to domain name. Okay, let's see how this DNS works. Okay, when the user enters the URL, that URL will contain the protocol, domain name, folder name, and file name, right? That will be entered in the search box of the browser. Okay, in the search engine we'll have an address bar. In that you will be typing the URL. The system will first check its DNS cache for the corresponding IP address. Okay, if the IP address is found in that cache, then the information will be uh, received from that cache itself. If not, the system will be sending a DNS query. That means the system will need a resolver to know about the IP address of this particular URL, right? So, from the internet service provider, that is ISP, this resolver will get a query naming that this URL needs the IP address, like that. Each resolver will have its own cache, and if it is found in that, then the information is received from that cache itself, right? If not, then the query will be passed to the next domain, right? And then in the next server it will again search, or we'll say it as top level domain. This top level domain will have the reviews and the request, and it will direct to the name server associated with that specific domain, and it will again check whether this URL matches to any IP address. If it is there, it will then receive the IP address, and this client will be able to open that web page, or else the query will be passed to the next level of domains. At last, the mapping and the record are returned to the resolver. This resolver only will be checking whether the return value is a record or an error, right? Then the resolver will return the record back to the computer browser. Then it will be viewed by the user. Okay, so this resolver plays a main role in this DNS. Okay, in this domain name system, this resolver will check whether the the correct web page is got to the got, or else if there is any error, it will just check it, and if the correct web page is achieved, it will just give it to the user's side servers, right? So that's all in this chapter about DNS. So you have got the clear idea about domain name system, right? Domain name system means DNS, right? That is the process of giving a name instead of a IP address, right? So we have seen about domain name system, IP address. Inside the IP address, we have seen about IPv4 and IPv6 address also. Then we have seen about URL. URL we all know. We all are using the URL to uh, sign in, or to see a video, or to see a web page, right? So URL is Uniform Resource Locator. Okay, in this URL we had learned two types: absolute URL, relative URL. If there is a complete address, we'll say it is absolute URL. If there is a partial address, we'll say it is relative URL. Okay, and the next one is DNS components. Here we have seen about three important components. What are they? Namespace, name server, and zone. Namespace, we have seen flat namespace and hierarchical namespace. And then we have seen about label, domain name, and the basic rules of having a domain name. This is a very important one. You just read it and learn it, okay, about this DNS. Okay, what are the basic rules of the domain names? Domain name may be having A to Z, maybe alphabet or a number. It can have hyphens also, and that hyphen should not come in the hyphen should not come in the first, and spaces are not allowed, and some special symbols like exclamatory mark, dollar, and symbol, or underscore symbol are not permitted. And this domain name will have a minimum length of 2 to 63 characters also, and the entire name may be at most of 253 characters long, right? And it is not case sensitive, so you can use uppercase, that is capital letter, or small letter, or you can just mix both also. And then we have seen about generic top level domain names. We have seen the domain names and the meaning for that. And then we have seen country top level domain names, and about name servers and the types of name servers. Root name server, primary name server, secondary name server. Primary name server will say it as master name server also, and secondary name server will say it as slave name server also. And then zone. About zone we have seen, and then we have seen about resolver, and then at last we have seen how this DNS works, right? So we have come to the end of this chapter. This is very easy, and this is a very interesting chapter, right? This is the thing, how we get a URL, or how we get a address, and you have got a link, and when you click that link, you are able to see this video, right? How this process is done through this DNS only, right? And in the next chapter we'll be learning about network cabling and all, right? Thank you for your valuable time. Stay home, stay safe, take care, bye.